Merry Christmas. I'll get copyrighted if I sing anymore. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and I hope you have had an amazing Christmas. I hope you are enjoying the holidays in general, no matter what you celebrate. And yes, I am back in my Christmas jumper. It no longer fits me properly anymore because baby bump is getting big. I mean, look at this little Christmas pudding growing in here. Yeah, today I actually wanted to do something a little bit festive because 'tis the season and all that jazz, and I feel like I did way more spooky Halloween videos than I did Christmas videos, but it's just the way it works out. I mean, it hasn't really felt all too festive lately, especially with the UK going back into a second major lockdown. So yeah, today we are talking about festive stories in general, and are they actually any good? To me, I found this an interesting case study because there are so many types of festive stories. You have your classic holiday hijinks capers, you have your festive rom-coms, you have New Year's resolution style bucket list movies. You have many, and it's not just Christmas, it's the holidays in general. I mean, you have Hanukkah, you have Kwanzaa, there's just countless really when you think about it. And yeah, are festive stories actually any good? Well, let's take a little look into some of the facts, shall we? Let's be honest, they are very repetitive, but they have this heartfelt nature to them. They always end in a very similar, overly sweet, hammer home a message to you kind of way. Even the horror-themed ones like Krampus, they have this story to them where you have to learn something at the end in order to fully appreciate the holidays that are happening with you at present time. It's a very formulaic kind of story. And let's be honest, bonus points if it's a musical. At the end of the day, festive stories all come down to one point, and that is there is a struggle that is making someone not feel festive, which we can all relate to. There is a very over-the-top solution that just kind of derails everything, which we can all relate to, and it ends in a message that we must all learn in order to fully understand, actually stuff isn't so bad because festive season, which doesn't always happen in real life. It's very hit and miss whether that one's actually relatable or not. And yet we still come back to watch them. I'm talking mostly about movies because I'll be honest and say I have not read a lot of festive books, but the point still stands in terms of writing, character, formula, that kind of thing. But you know, we always come back to watch these stories every single year, sometimes the same ones every single year. And why do we do that when it's so repetitive and we know exactly where the story's going to go and there's barely any surprises? Well, for one, it's nonsense brain food, really, that just sparks just enough emotion for us to be interested without having to be fully invested. So we can watch it and think, yeah, it's a Christmas story, we know exactly where this is going to go, we understand what the message is going to be, we've seen this type of thing before, it's okay, so I don't have to pay too much attention, but there's just enough emotion in there, there's just enough of a story for us to be like, I don't have to pay too much attention, but at the same time I want to see if it's going where I think it's going to go, because why not? And if it's a musical, because the music's catchy. Doesn't have to be good, but it can be catchy. But when you look at certain films, like what is the difference really between a good Christmas story or festive story and a terrible one? If they're all pretty much the same, then what is the divider between holiday classics like Home Alone and Arthur Christmas and god-awful ones like Deck the Halls and Christmas with the Cranks? I mean, for good, you could even include more modern ones like Jingle Jangle, but then for terrible, you could also include Christmas Break-In, which is basically the same movie as Home Alone, but one is good and one is awful. Why? What are the defining factors? Well, it does really all come down to pretty much the same formula as when you're writing a story. Is the story any good? Even if it's the same story done in a different way, is it still captivating and does it still have a point to make? If it does, then you're going to be a little bit more interested. So for example, let's take Home Alone and Christmas Break-In, both exactly the same movie. A child is left behind and has to defend the place that they are in from robbers and burglars and bad people. It's the same movie. But with Home Alone, you've had a good development where you can see into the character's mind, you can see what the message is going to be because you've seen his interactions with the family, you've had a slow burn build up to what kind of personality the burglars have. You have a world that has been built early on before the actual break-in itself has happened. Whereas Christmas Break-In, the entire movie is the festive hijinks stopping the robbers. You've had little to no introduction to the main character. She's just in a school that closes early and her parents just don't show up. They're running late and that is it. Instantly the burglars arrive. You've had no introduction to who they are. You do not know their motivation. It is just, hey, you liked this funny bit from Home Alone, how about we stretch that into an entire movie? You don't even have to really remember the characters' names or anything like that. You remember the guys from Home Alone, you remember Marv, you remember Kevin. Here, you don't remember anybody. So it's the same as when you are setting up the writing for your story. You need to have decent developed characters with aims, goals, and a strong mindset, and then you have to twist things along the way to prove why this mindset and why these goals aren't going to bring them the happiness that they need. With Home Alone, he thinks if he doesn't have his family, he's going to be free, he's going to have the time of his life, and then he starts to realize just how scary the real world can be and how he now has to change this mindset to defend himself to try and bring his family back and make sure that there's a home for his family to come back to. With Christmas Break-In, she's just there. There's nothing. She's just like, yeah, I'm in school, there's burglars. Okay. Another thing is acting. If you can tell that the actors are just there for a paycheck, then it's a much less enjoyable experience because it feels cheap, it feels forced, and you can tell that none of them actually want to be there. Whereas if you're in a film that has genuine effort put into it, and I don't just mean the type, like, you know, the biggest celebrity name, because that's another thing with Christmas movies. They have big stars and big names and, you know, the latest popular people showing up to try and push the movie forward, but it doesn't actually come down to that. Like, yeah, they're well known, so they have more of a reputation on the line, but it all comes down to the effort. They need to put the effort into the movie in order to really make these characters stand out, and if we're invested in the characters, more likely we'll be invested in the story. Also, creativity. You have to have some level of creativity. If you only have a movie that's like joke after joke after joke after joke, or spit take after slapstick after pratfall, then it's not a good movie. You may as well watch one of those obstacle course game shows on TV, because you're going to have the exact same amount of laughs and probably be more invested in that, to be honest, because at least they have a goal. Here it's just for cheap laughs. It's like horror films with a cheap jump scare. You have that moment of and then it's gone, because the tension's gone, because the atmosphere's gone. It's the same with movies like Deck the Halls, or I'm really sorry, Tom, because I know you have a guilty pleasure with this movie, Jingle All the Way. I'm sorry, but when it's just forced joke after bad pun after pratfall, there isn't really much of character and development and effort put in there. There's no creativity, because it's just like, oh, these are cheap, easy to do laughs on repeat, and then we can call it a comedy. It doesn't have the same oomph. And like I said, jump scares, you've got that tension building, you know that there's something around the corner, but then instead of actually letting that slow burn go, it's da, and then that's it, and then it's gone, and then you're like, okay, well, I've had my boo moment now. There needs to be a lesson learned. I get that. Festive movies are all about understanding the true meaning of the holiday, about wanting to spend time with your family despite the flaws, or getting a confidence in yourself, or, you know, maybe even that resolution of finding the one, which I don't understand why that's such a popular thing. I mean, why is it that all issues can be solved by getting into a relationship? To me, that's just causing more issues, to be honest. I mean, if you can't get your own life sorted, then how are you going to expect to get somebody else's life in order as well? It's just, but that's a rant for another day. Good acting and good character development. It's exactly the same as when you're writing a story. If you have a decent character and you have a good arc for them, then you are going to be so much more invested in the story and the journey they take. And Christmas movies don't often do that because they already have this idea of, oh, she wants to open up a bakery, or he wants to find the love of his life after losing his wife or whatever, and this is what's going to make them happy, and they do it, and that's it. And I understand why rom-coms are popular, because it does promote the overall message of not being alone for the holidays, that even if it's with a loved one, a significant other, or family, the idea of being alone at Christmas is one that nobody really enjoys and no one wants to take part in. They want to have people around them, they want to be loved, they want to be surrounded by loved ones. So a rom-com where you are setting two people up to be together for the holidays where they would be alone, I can understand the appeal in that sense. But it's the same story over and over again, so why do we keep going back to them? Mindless brain food and an easy to display message. Not to mention sequel fodder. Sequel fodder everywhere. So are festive movies good? Or do we just watch them because they're easy to watch? Honestly, this is not an easy question to answer, because I don't think there is a straight answer. Because it all depends on the effort put into it from the start. We will sit there and we will criticize movies like Christmas with the Cranks because there's no effort put into it, the actors clearly don't want to be there, and it is just cliche after cliche. And yet we will sit there and we will enjoy films like Klaus or Arthur Christmas or Home Alone because the actors clearly did want to be there. Even the voice actors, they want to be there, they put the effort in, and they really made a point of developing characters into an arc in order to learn a lesson rather than just have the lesson shoved down your throat in the last 5 minutes. With animation, you have the effort and seeing just how cleverly designed everything is and making brand new styles and creating worlds. A more recent one like Jingle Jangle that's just shown up on Netflix now, the music that went into it is so well paced that it doesn't feel like an over-the-top force-it-down-your-throat musical. And I'll admit the story to that is very basic. It is not a very immersive story, but it's the characters and the effort that went into their character arcs and their development and the actors behind them is what really drew me in. Not to mention that style-wise, it is a very stylish film. Looking at sequels, what's the difference between The Christmas Chronicles, which was actually a very decent and heartfelt film that did have a message to it, but tackled some really dark issues that you just weren't expecting. What is the difference between that, which wasn't a great movie, but a decent movie that knew how to draw you in and knew how to make characters stand out and give distinct personalities, and the sequel, Christmas Chronicles 2, which was just basically a rehash of Santa Claus 3. What is the difference? Effort. You need to put the effort in. It's the same with any damn story. You need to put effort into the writing, into the world, into the characters, and if it is a movie and the actors clearly don't want to be there, then it's just going to make the whole thing feel cheap. Also, I suppose it depends on the mindset you have sitting down. If you're just not feeling in a very festive mood and you sit down to watch a festive film, then guaranteed you're going to be a little bit Scroogey about it and just not have the same... It's not going to have the same impact because your mind is already blocking out the fact of, I don't want to be here. Again, the effort. So are Christmas and festive movies in general any good? The bottom line that I can come up with today is it all depends on the efforts that went into them. It depends on the effort that went into the writing, the characters, the development, and it all depends on the effort you are willing to put into the watching and viewing experience, because Sometimes you just don't want to watch a Christmas film, and being forced to watch one is just as hazardous to the festive spirits. This was a bit of a case study in a way, and one that did not answer many questions at all, and I am sorry about that. This was probably not a great video at all, I'm sorry. But Christmas. Are Christmas festive movies any good? Depends on the effort that went into them, that's all I can say. And it's a bit of a cheap answer, but it's the same when writing stories. You can have the most amazing story in the world, but if you didn't put any effort into writing and editing and developing characters in a world, then the story's not going to make much difference because everything else is just going to fall flat. Effort. Let's make 2020 the year of effort, shall we? Yeah, I'm going to end it here before I go on even more of a tangent. So I hope you're doing well, I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you have an amazing, happy, merry set of holidays no matter what you celebrate. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, my scribblers.